Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Preparedness Podcast, the podcast where we try to bring you the best in preparedness information. My name is Rob Hannes, and I will be the host for the show. Today is September 10th, 2012. I don't normally make the date announcement because I keep all the podcasts up, and you never know when somebody's going to be listening to this, but couple things to note. Tomorrow is the anniversary of the September 11th terrorist attacks, and it's always important to remember that, not only for the loss that this country suffered, but because, it's a good reminder of, we still have enemies, and it's one of those things that we need to be prepared for. Also, today, the hacker group Anonymous attacked GoDaddy.com and brought down their DNS servers, which took down millions of websites and email across the world, primarily, I think, in this country, but I would imagine there are quite a few people in the globe that were affected as well. I was one of these. I don't really know how much of the websites were affected today, but for a large portion of today, I was unable to send email. Now, I could get email, but I couldn't send it. I bring this up primarily because it is one of those things that we should keep in mind. The internet plays a bigger and bigger part of our daily lives. I mean, you're listening to this podcast primarily because of the internet. So you need to keep in mind that everything that's interconnected, when it goes down, it has ramifications that we may not have thought of, and we need to have backup and contingency plans to make sure that we can handle these issues when they come up. Good news on the weekly tips front. I think all this has been fixed now, and by the time you've heard this, you should have started receiving the weekly tips again. From what I can tell and what it looks like is that nobody should be getting any duplicates. You should pick up right up where you left off of. So those should be hitting your inbox, like I said, anytime now if you haven't already got them. On October 6th and 7th of this year, that's a Saturday and Sunday, in Mesa, Arizona, there is going to be the Arizona Survivalist and Prepper Expo. My wife and I are planning on being there, and so if you see a couple people walking around with nice big Prepcast logos on the t-shirt, go ahead and stop us because we'd like to meet you. We are getting ready to record the Spouse and Preparedness podcast, so if you've got any questions, this is the final call to get them in. Go ahead and send them to rob@prepcast.info. And speaking of how to get a hold of us, you can also find us on Twitter at Prepcast and on Facebook at Preparedness Podcast. This podcast topic is going to be about evacuation. Where will you go when you have to evacuate? But before we get into it, I want to quickly touch on precious metals. You've heard me talk about this before, and I want to briefly explain why it's important. Now, I'm not saying that you should buy gold and silver if you have other preps that you need to do. But if you have, say, a savings account or some other finances that are stuck in other investments perhaps, and you've seen them go down before, say maybe 4 or 5 years ago, you really should be thinking about what else you can do to keep that wealth, that preserve that savings of that money. And one of the ways that you can do that is to have physical gold and silver. Now, physical means that you actually are in possession, you actually own the physical metal. This doesn't mean EBT, this doesn't mean a gold certificate that your gold is housed for you in some unknown location. Physical gold and silver. Gold and silver are directly tied inversely to the value of the dollar. So in a nutshell, as the value of the dollar goes down, the value of your precious metals go up. When you buy your gold and silver, and if you just hold it, it will preserve the value over time. When I first was looking into having gold and silver myself, I wanted to know exactly what I was getting into and how much money I can make for this. And so I charted, since the early 70s, the price of gold and the value of the dollar. And what I found out was that it's not an investment. And I called Jeff because I had known Jeff for a while. And I said, hey, I don't understand something. if I buy gold, in 1980, by 1995, I didn't make any money. And he's like, that's right. You're exactly right. You don't make money when you have gold and silver. But what it does is it allows you to buy the same amount of goods regardless of what the value of the dollar is. And that's why you want to have the physical gold and silver, because it preserves your wealth. Jeff has given me a lot of education on this. Jeff is one of those guys that really intuitively understands having gold and silver and what it can do and why it's historically important and how it can help you preserve the wealth and the value of your savings. You can go to flyingeaglegold.com and take a look at the information that Jeff has on his website. You can call him at 623-327-1778. Or if you're driving and you have nothing to write, just go to the preparednesspodcast.com and look for Jeff's banner. It's the Flying Eagle Gold banner at the top of the page. The main topic of this podcast is going to be planning to evacuate. Where will you go when you have to evacuate? This is part of the Back to Basics series. We've talked about this several times before as far as having an evacuation plan. But I've never actually covered what you need to do, to make your plan and what you should consider. So when you make your evacuation plan, the worst time to do that is when you actually have to evacuate. You need to think about this before it happens, because otherwise what happens is you grab all these things that you don't need. And I'm sure if you've watched any evacuations out of any sort of disaster area, even including the hurricane like Katrina and stuff like that, you see these people and they've got all sorts of weird stuff that they've grabbed. They've grabbed like mattresses and rocking chairs and lamps and footboards and headboards and stuff, and their pickup truck is just loaded with all this like furniture, and this stuff doesn't do anything. This stuff isn't going to keep you safe. It isn't going to help you survive. They don't grab what they need because they're panicking. They never gave any thought to this, and suddenly they have to leave, and they have to leave by a certain time. And a lot of people, they just put it off until, it won't happen. Suddenly the reality hits them, and pow, they got to go, and they just grab whatever they can, and they're miserable because they didn't grab the right stuff. So think about and make your evacuation plan while you're calm and nothing bad is happening. Think about all the things that you have that are irreplaceable and have a high value to them that would not be replaced by insurance. Beyond getting you and your family to safety and staying safe, the things that you have that are among your highest priorities are going to be the irreplaceable stuff. This could be heirlooms, family photos, anything that you just can't replace. Now, it should go without saying that part of your evacuation plan should be having insurance to cover the things in your house so that you can walk away from them knowing that, they may be destroyed, but at least you have insurance to help cover this. And I realize that insurance isn't always the panacea that we think it is, but at least it is better than nothing, and it does allow you to concentrate on the most important things. Again, I want to stress, do not wait until you have to evacuate before trying to decide what to take. It's a mistake, and you're going to regret it. Okay, you need to think about where you would go. The most important thing when you evacuate is not to become a refugee. If you don't know where you're going, you're a refugee. And refugees never have a great time in history. We always see these old movie reels from wars and stuff and disasters that happen, and they're just these massively depressed people because they have nothing, they don't know where they're going, and they're reliant on others. They're beholden to somebody else for their basic needs. And you can avoid all that by making sure that you plan now so that if you have to evacuate, you know where you're going and you know what you're taking, and you have a plan to do it. Now, don't assume that you need to head for the hills at the first sign of trouble. There are a lot of places that you can go that are far more comfortable than sleeping in a tent on the ground, having to deal with the rain. You should plan for these things. Going to the hills and camping out should be the last thing you should be considering. Now, back in episode 118, we talked about making a threat assessment for your area. Use this list to get an idea of the events that you may need to have to evacuate for. Take a look at what direction these events would be happening. So if you're near a nuclear power plant, or you're by the ocean and you have a threat of hurricanes, you need to take a look at what direction you might be evacuating to, and take a look at what's there. Friends and family, motels and hotels. Those are great places to go that are much more comfortable than sleeping on the ground. I would also avoid any government shelters for a variety of reasons. And if you plan properly, you won't have to go to a government shelter. Now, have a list of places where you can go that encircle your home area, so that no matter which way you have to evacuate out of, you have some place that you can go to, even if it is a campground. Now, let's say, just for example, you have to evacuate north, and you already know from looking at your threats and what's around and where you can go that there is nothing to the north. Well, you can either evacuate to the north and then circle around to where you have some place to go, or find a campground that's there. There's nothing wrong with camping. It's just don't make that the very first thing you think of, because there are other alternatives. Once you've made your list of places of where you can go, then the next step is to make an evacuation grab list. This is a list of everything that you want to take if you have to evacuate. And the items should be listed in priority order based on what needs to be grabbed first. You should have several copies of your evacuation grab list and place them in strategic places so that you know where to grab it when it's time to get out of Dodge. Back in episode 114, we talked about the home escape bag. This is an excellent location for one of the copies of your grab list. Now, this shouldn't be your only copy. I would recommend putting them anywhere that is convenient but will stay there, like say maybe a sock drawer, perhaps in your bathroom or in your nightstand. You should have probably one located in your kitchen, possibly in a cupboard or the pantry or something. You need to have several of these lists so that basically when you get the word to evacuate, you can go grab one of these lists and know exactly what you need to start doing. And of course, if you have any get out of Dodge or bug out bags or pre-packed, you should put a copy in there as well. Now, there are several ways that you can actually make your grab lists. One way is to grab a piece of paper and a pencil and clipboard or something and go room to room and looking at what you have. Go to the bathroom, go to the bedroom, go to the closet, go to the kitchen, your office. Make a list of those things that are critical to take for whatever reason. Maybe you've got heirloom photos on the wall and frames. That should be on the list. Another way you can look at it is to do it by time. What would you grab if you only had 5 minutes? And I don't mean like 5 minutes, but it really stretched to 10. No, exactly 5 minutes. Only what you can grab. You need to prioritize, because there are people who that's all they get is 5 minutes, sometimes less, to get out, depending on what the event is. For this level, I would look at just the essentials. Your home escape bag, your wallet, purse, family photos. Maybe if you got a laptop with sensitive or important data, any sort of pre-packed bug out or evacuation bags. That's about it. Whatever you can grab in 5 minutes, which is not a lot of time. Then next on the list, I put like 10 minutes. What you would grab if you had 10 minutes. So it'd be everything you grabbed in 5 minutes plus an additional 5 minutes. And then keep going. What would you take if you had 30 minutes or an hour? Now, sometimes you get evacuation or pre-evacuation orders, which means you are probably going to have to evacuate, but you may have as much as 6 hours or even 2 days notice that you may have to evacuate. You should use this time wisely to make sure that you can protect whatever you have to leave behind, and make sure that you're only grabbing and packing what needs to be taken with you. So if you haven't gathered by now from the manner I keep saying the same things over and over, is that it's important to plan now while you have the time. Now, another way of doing your evacuation list is to do it just based on priority and have things packed and preset ready to go. Whether they're, like for example, I have a laptop that basically contains all my digital information. That's one of the things I would grab in my first priority list because it's got so much on it. Now, the way that I have structured my evacuation list is basically I have 3 sections. I grab these first, I grab these next, and I grab these if there's time sections. And they are listed in order. Now, not necessarily grab wallet, then grab ring, then grab, it's not quite like that. It's basically compartmentalized so that, for example, on my list, personal items are the first things I grab. Important files and papers, photos of the family and pets for identification, wallet, purse, cell phone and chargers, keys, checkbooks, any sort of information I would have, say like my little fire safe where we keep all our important documents, that sort of stuff. And then the next thing on the list are what I call my fast packs, which are basically my bug out bags, but they're more than just bug out bags, but I'll get into that in another show. But I grab these, and that includes medical bags and food bags and sundries and stuff like that. Then I grab my computer and electronics, and then I grab, then I keep going down the list: economic, first aid, clothing and footwear, and the dog food and bowls. Those what I grab in order, because if I start at the top of the list, I just keep grabbing stuff, and as soon as I run out of time for whatever reason, that I've already grabbed the most important stuff. Now, the next stuff on my list, under the grab these next category, are basically camping stuff, sleeping bags and Coleman stoves and camping cookware and stuff like that. Some more food, water, light, more protection items like, grab all my guns and ammo if I can, and stuff like that. And then I have a grab these if there's time category, and those are all the things that I'd like to save. And if I had time and room in my truck or trucks, I'll go ahead and pack these. But as I go down the list, they become less and less important. For example, my tools like a shovel and rake are at the very bottom of the list. They can be important, but they're not nearly as important as other things on my grab list. And so, again, if I haven't been clear enough, it's very important that you make sure that the most important items are what you're going to grab first. And then as the list continues and you have more time, you can grab the less important things. That is the key factor of your evacuation grab list. And by doing it when you have the time and you're not panicking, you can make some very clear, logical decisions about what needs to be taken with you if you have to evacuate. So you're not running out of the house with nothing but spatulas and couch pillows, which don't do you any good. Okay, some of the other things to consider. If you know that an evacuation is possible, do the following. And what I mean by know, I mean, there's a hurricane coming or you have a pre-evacuation order for whatever reason. Keep your gas tank full. And this may mean having to top it off, at the end of the day on your way home from work just to make sure that it's as full as possible. If you don't own a vehicle, get with friends, families, or neighbors, or even your local government and arrange a ride out of the area. Listen to the radio on a frequent or continual basis for information and evacuation routes. Now, all these are very important because you need to stay on top of things, and you don't want to have a half tank of gas and suddenly there's no gas available because everybody panicked, and now you're sitting there without enough gas to get out of the area. Make sure you have at least 3 places to go to. We talked about having like one in every direction from around your house, but at least have 3 so you know where you go to. Remember, don't become a refugee. Keep enough gas on hand in safe containers and within the confines of your local laws, so that you can get to your destination, all 3 destinations. Gas stations are often crowded, they're closed, or they're out of gas. Keep your tank full, have extra gas so that you can get to where you need to go and not have to worry about trying to find fuel on the way. Stay away from washed out bridges and roads. Stay away from flooded areas. Down power lines and other signs of danger are just, avoid them. Don't take the risk. Don't wait until everybody else is leaving before you evacuate. Stay ahead of the crowd. Leave early so you can avoid the traffic snarls and the severe weather. There's nothing that says you can't spontaneous evacuate when you're all packed and you're ready to go and you know that you're going to have to. Don't wait to be like everybody else. Go soon. Unplug all your electrical equipment before you leave. Radios, TVs, all your appliances, everything should be unplugged. Secure your home before you go by locking the doors and windows, close the blinds, just like you would on vacation. Make your house as secure as possible because there are going to be looters in the area and you don't know how long you're going to be gone. Tell somebody outside of the affected area where you're going. So if let's say you live in Alabama and you have a parent in Montana, call them and let them know where you're going so somebody knows where you're going and how you're going to get there so that they know that if for whatever reason you don't show up, somebody needs to start looking for you. Use this person as the bulletin board for contacting other people. So instead of you trying to call your brother that's across town, both of you should be contacting mom that's in Montana, and she'll relay the messages. And the reason for this is it's often easier to call long distance than it is local when all the phone lines are being tied up because everybody's on the phone. Now, don't make the assumption, the very wrong assumption, that you'll never have to evacuate because you live in a relatively safe area and you're good to go. If you look around what's happening in the United States right now, and possibly other countries, but quite honestly, I don't pay attention to the weather patterns in other countries that much, so I don't really know. But here in America, we've got droughts where we normally have rain. We have rain where we normally have, dryness. Like, for example, here in Arizona, I don't know if you can hear the thunder in the background, but we've got a thunderstorm rolling by, and we have had so much rain in this summer that I haven't had to run my irrigation all that much. I mean, that is unusual to have this much rain on a regular basis that I don't even have to worry about artificially watering my lawn and my plants. So the point I'm trying to make is just because you think you don't have to evacuate because there's no dangers around you, you never know what's going to happen. It could be a wildfire, it could be a terrorist attack, it could be a natural weather event that doesn't happen. I mean, look, we just had a tornado in New York City. I think it was yesterday or a couple days ago. I bet you those people didn't think about a tornado because it almost never happens there. Don't fall into that trap. Get ready. Get your evacuation plans in order. It's one of the basic parts of your preparedness plan that you need to have covered. Create your evacuation list. Create the places where you're going to go. You can go to places like Google Maps or any sort of online mapping software and create strip maps, basically little map printouts of how to get to these locations. When you create your evacuation plan, go over it with your family. Make sure that every responsible person, your older kids and your spouse, know what to do, know where the evacuation grab lists are. Keep a copy of these strip maps and addresses and stuff in their vehicles. You may not be around when it's time to evacuate, and they're going to have to do this on their own. So they need to know what they need to do. They need to know where to pull out this set of maps. Now, what I did was I actually made these strip of maps with text directions on them, and I laminated them, and I put them in my wife's car, and I put a set in my car, so that all we had to do was grab this list and find the location that we were going to go to. And what we did is we prioritized where we were going to meet. If she had to evacuate or bug out before I could get home from work, I knew where she was going to go because we had things prioritized like that. But she had a set of maps on how to get there. Very, very important for me to make sure that she knew what to grab and how to get out without me being here. So, can you guess what the project of the week is going to be? That's right. You need to create your own evacuation plan. If you have an evacuation plan, applause to you, but you need to review it now. Make sure that it is up to date. Make sure you know where you're going to go. Make sure you know what you're going to grab, and it's prioritized so that you grab it in order so that when you run out of time, you know you've grabbed everything you could have grabbed that was the most important. Make sure everybody in your family knows what the plan is, especially where you're going. Now, think of a situation where you're not going to have any phone contact. You need to know that, well, gosh, my wife and kids had a bug out before I got home, but even though I can't get a hold of them on the cell phone because everything's tied up, I know where they're going because we have a plan. So that's your project for the week. Good luck with it. If you have any questions, please feel free to write me at rob@prepcast.info. Until next time, folks, enjoy life and be safe.